Welcome to the Teams Windows Desktop Client session. My name is Thomas Winder. I'm a Senior Program Manager in the Teams product group. Before we dive into the content, let's do a bit of housekeeping. You can find additional resources, such as the PowerPoint for this recording, additional PowerPoints and additional recordings at aka.ms/teamsacademy. If you have any feedback for this specific training session, if you want us to cover something else, go deeper, or maybe in some areas not as deep, please let us know in the community. Go to aka.ms/teamscommunity, create a new post and use the IT Pro training label so we can easily find it. If you have any feedback on the features, so how the product behaves, if you want to see something changed, please let us know at aka.ms/teamsfeedback and create a new idea or vote on existing ideas. Please also note that Teams and Office 365 evolve constantly. We add new functionality all the time. So stay up to date by going to aka.ms/teamsblog. This slide also indicates when the session was recorded, so that should give you an information how up to date the information here is. After today's session, you will understand how the desktop client increases reachability and productivity of your end users. You will understand how it can be installed individually by users or rolled out by IT. And finally, about the updates, you will know that updates are fully automated in Teams. So, what we want to cover today is everything about the Windows Desktop Client. We want to talk about the benefits, why it is a good thing to install the Windows Desktop Client. We want to talk about how IT pros can deploy and install the Windows Desktop Client and plan for that. And then once it is deployed, how they can manage it. And we want to start here with the benefits. So I want to emphasize that this is about the benefits of the Windows Desktop Client. So we assume that you already understand the benefits of having Microsoft Teams. If you're still looking for the benefits of Microsoft Teams, I would recommend to watch other sessions that are specific on the value of Teams. So we start with an example. This is Ellis. Ellis is an information worker. She and her team recently started to use Teams, and she likes Teams a lot. Again, the session is not about the value of Teams, but she just loves that she can communicate in a persistent way with her team, that she has all her files in the same context, that there's a place to store it all, and that it makes collaboration just really, really easy. Ellis also likes the fact that she can use Teams just from her browser. So she doesn't need to install anything, she just goes to the browser and then she has all the features, and the client can do almost the same thing as the fully installed client. However, then she remembers that she needs to always open the browser and open the Teams page so that she's signed in and can get notifications. And she's a little bit afraid of what happens if she one day forgets to sign in the morning, forgets to open the browser, or maybe closes the browser session during the day and forgets to reopen it. What happens if she misses a very important message from a coworker? Then she realizes there's a Teams client she can install on her PC. So she downloads the Teams client and installs it on her computer. Ellis is really happy. Now the Teams client starts automatically whenever she signs in into her machine. It remembers her identity, so she's automatically signed in. So without any additional action, she's always connected and always up to date. If there's something important coming up, she will get a notification. Also, she realizes there are additional features. She has now in Outlook an add-in to plan meetings, and she has now more features in meetings, so she can do audio, video, desktop sharing, and she likes all of that really a lot. The only thing that she is still puzzled about is, well, it's great that she fixed her own problem and she can be sure that she's always online. But is that the same for her colleagues? What if she wants to send Bob a message, but Bob on this day didn't sign into Teams, didn't open the browser, didn't go to the right website? So she reaches out to the IT department. And this is actually our next scenario. Here we have Carol. She's an IT admin. She works in Contoso's IT department, and Contoso recently decided that the whole company should use Teams for collaboration. So they want to get sure that the users get the most out of using Teams. They are running a lot of trainings, awareness campaigns, but at the same time they realize that Teams provides the most value if users are signed in. So she wants to get sure that everyone has the best user experience, which means they are going to deploy the Teams client to all their users. And so all the benefits that we have just seen with Ellis, that's why Carol is also motivated to get the Teams client rolled out to everyone. Users are signed in at startup, they get additional features, and there's additional management capability. So Carol rolling out the Teams client makes her super happy. So now looking at all these benefits that we just heard about. Having the Teams client installed on your PC will improve the productivity, because every time a user starts, automatically Teams will be started, and if they have signed in before, they will be automatically signed in. That means again, so Ellis can control her own behavior. She can remember to always open the browser, or she might be able to decide to install the client on her machine, but she can't control her coworkers. So if she sends messages to Bob and other users, she wants to get sure, or she wants to be certain that they are receiving these messages in time. Now, obviously, she could go to Bob and tell him how to install the client and how awesome that is, but if IT already rolled it out to the whole company, it's just there by default. No one needs to do any additional action. Everyone is always reachable. Users will stay connected and will be better informed and will be able to work better. Also, the Teams desktop client offers the richest experience. They can call users directly from their Teams client to other Teams clients. They have the full meeting experience with full audio, video, and sharing. And we talked before about the web client. The web client looks almost the same as the desktop client, has almost the same features. This is where there's still a small feature gap. It might depend on which browser you're using. Some browsers are giving more functionality than others. And you can find in the documentation all the details, but since this session is not about the web client, but the desktop client, I don't want to go into too much detail. Bottom line is the desktop client has the richest feature set. And there's the Outlook add-in. So there's an Outlook add-in installed together with the Teams client that will allow users to plan and schedule meetings directly from Outlook, which again increases productivity because no matter where the users are you need to do a meeting with, they can just join with the Teams client and you can schedule all of that directly from Outlook. Now from the IT Pro perspective, there are also some benefits. I added auto update here to the slide, though to be honest, auto update is not a unique feature of the desktop client. Any client has an auto update, so clients will always be up to date, which means that you don't have to be afraid of having various different versions out there, which might increase help desk costs because you never know if a missing feature is due to an old version. All of this is handled automatically, no additional effort required. Also, the desktop client allows for mass deployments. So we have an MSI that you can roll out with whatever technology you're using to roll out to all your users. And the desktop client also allows for quality of service tagging. So you can, on the network, tag specific workloads, audio, video, desktop sharing, differently to prioritize the audio traffic to get sure that you have high quality in your meetings and calls. Now let's move on how to plan and deploy the Windows desktop client. If you look at the desktop client lifecycle, there are two actions that need to happen. First, it needs to be installed, and then it needs to be stay up to date. The installation is a one-time activity per user. And that's actually an important detail. The installation happens per user in the user profile. So if you have multiple users sharing the same machine, that means that each of these users will have to install the client in their user profile. And as mentioned before, the installation can be user or admin driven. So the user can install Teams him or herself, and the admin can install on behalf of the users. The update in Microsoft Teams is fully automated. This is nothing that an IT pro or an administrator can control or needs to control or manage. The client will update automatically, so users will always have the latest bug fixes, improvements, features. There's no version sprawl. You don't need to be afraid of that one user that has a 2 years old version, and all of this is fully automated. We'll have details on the update in a later slide as well. So what are the installation options for the PC? First, there's a standalone exe that a user can just download from the web and install. We promote the exe also from the Teams web client. So if a user is in the Teams web client, they get a pop-up saying, hey, did you know there's also a version of the client that you can install? You can download it here. For IT-driven installation, we have an MSI available that gives you some options, and we'll cover that in the next slides. Recently, Teams also become part of Office 365 Pro Plus. So if you install Office 365 Pro Plus, Teams client will come with it. Actually, it depends on the Office update channel. Since we just started rolling out this feature, not all of the Office update channels have Teams included today. Just go to the link listed here to find out which Office versions have Teams client already included. For the best experience with Microsoft Teams on your PC, you want to get sure that you meet the hardware and software requirements. You can find all the requirements here, so you might want to pause the recording at this point to read through it. I'm not going to read it to you though. What does a user need to consider if they want to install Teams? From a permission perspective, not really anything. The Teams client can be installed without any admin permission. There's a 32-bit and a 64-bit version of the Teams client available. Teams is agnostic to the architecture of Office that is installed. So even if you're running Office in 32 bits, you can run Teams in 64 bits and you will get all the features, including the integration into Office and the Outlook add-in. We always recommend to use the 64-bit version of Teams. Please also note, for an integration to Office, you need to have Office 2013 or a newer version. Installation details. As said before, the installation is per user. So if you have a machine, multiple users use the same machine, each of the users will have an installation of the Teams client. We have listed here the directories where Teams is installed to and the directory that's required for the update. Please get sure that if you have an automatic rollout, that all of these directories can be accessed by the MSI and can be leveraged. We already mentioned the MSI option to install Teams, and the MSI really allows you a broad IT-driven deployment. You can follow your standard deployment processes, group policies, System Center Configuration Manager, or anything else that you might be using to deploy it to all your users. If you do so, you should always think about the existing machines where you have already rolled out all your software, now you want to add Teams, and also the standard build for any new machines. The way the MSI works needs to be understood though. You can use it to deploy Teams, but you can't use it to deploy updates. The MSI, once installed to a machine, will place an installer in the program files. So you won't actually install Teams to these PCs, you will install the installer to these PCs. And then whenever a new user signs in, the Teams installer will be started, Teams will be installed, and then auto-started. After the Teams user signs in, the update process begins. So it uses the version of Teams that you used for the MSI, and then it checks if, hey, is that the latest version of Teams? If not, it will update itself. If the Teams version is new enough, the user will just sign in and be able to use the Teams, and then the updates for the latest version will happen in the background. However, if the Teams version is too old, more than a couple of weeks, the user needs to wait for the update to be completed before the user can use Teams, which usually should not be more than a couple of minutes. The MSI installer also allows to disable the auto start. So the scenario would be the following. You want to roll out Teams to all of your end users and get sure that they have the client installed on the PCs in case they want to run it, but it won't auto start. That is, it won't auto start until the first time a user manually starts it. So the MSI is deployed to all the PCs. A user signs in for the first time. Now the MSI will install Teams on their PCs, but it will never start. Instead, it will just place a Teams icon on the desktop of the user. Now, once the user started Teams, for example, using the desktop shortcut, from now on, every time the user restarts the machine, logs in, the Teams client will start as well for that user. In order to disable the auto start, you need to follow the command lines here listed on the slide. And please note they're different. The parameters are a little bit different depending if you're using the 32 or 60-bit version of Teams. Also note, if you want to test that manually, so if you're just playing around, you want to see the experience, use a command line with evaluated permissions. Because even if you run it as an administrator, without running it with evaluated permissions, the installer will not be able to configure the options for disable auto start. And in that case, you won't see an error message. So you might be testing that functionality, thinking it's not working, but then again, you just forgot the evaluated permissions. So what about managing the Windows desktop client? If you want to uninstall the Windows Teams client, get sure that you uninstall it completely. For example, if you had Teams installed, but you uninstall it, the MSI would not install it again unless it has been completely removed. Also, if you run into any challenges, issues with the client, and we have seen very few cases where people have problems with the client and want to reinstall it, again, get sure to completely uninstall it. For a complete uninstall, uninstall the Teams app for every user who used it on this machine. Then delete the directory that's described here on the slides, the local app data, Microsoft Teams, completely. Now everything is removed. Now you can reinstall Teams again. As mentioned several times, the Teams client updates automatically, and that's fantastic because you will have always the latest hotfixes, improvements, features. There won't be a version sprawl. However, currently the update process cannot be controlled or managed in any way. And this is how the update process works. So at sign in, there's a check if the version is new enough to sign in or too old. Rule of thumb is that it shouldn't be older than 3 versions, then it can sign in. If it's too old, the Teams will download the update and update before it can sign in. So if someone had a long leave of absence, it might be that they start the Teams client and cannot use it immediately, that the update needs to happen before. Usually, however, the more common case is that the version is not too old to sign in. So the user will sign in and can use Teams completely. After 15 minutes, so 15 minutes after the sign in the background, the Teams client will check if there is an updated version of the Teams client. If so, if it will download the Teams client, and please note that it will download the full client package in the background. Then, if the computer, the Teams app, is idle for 30 minutes, then the update will be installed and the Teams client will restart and the user will be notified that a new version has been installed. Updates are expected to happen not more than once a week. So in general, if the version is not older than 3 weeks, people should be able to sign in. In terms of client-side configuration, there is not really any client-side configuration that you need to run via GPOs or registry keys or anything else. All the client behavior is controlled via policies that are managed in the admin portal or the PowerShell. And one example here would be the Outlook add-in. You can disable that with a policy. Also functionality showing up in the client or not showing up will all about be the policy, but that's not really specific to the desktop client. Whatever you configure there will be configured across all the clients that a user has. So from that perspective, you can really say there is no client-side configuration. Here, also some troubleshooting information. Usually, when you install Teams the Outlook add-in will just show up. In 99.9% of the cases, that will just work perfectly fine. However, sometimes Teams might fail to initialize the add-in. And that means people use Outlook, they can't see the Teams add-in. If that's the case, we recommend the following steps. And please note that's only required once. Once the Teams add-in shows up, it will show up every time. Get sure that Outlook is starting before you start Teams. So if Teams is already running, stop Teams. Now start Outlook, now start Teams, and now restart Outlook. Now the add-in should show up. The add-in might also be not showing up based on user configuration. It will depend on the Teams upgrade coexistence mode. So if you set a user to Skype for Business only or meetings in Skype for Business, then the Teams add-in will not show up. Please also note that the add-in can be disabled via meeting policy. So maybe the add-in is not showing up. Check the meeting policy if it is even supposed to show up. Reporting on client usage. So you rolled out Teams client to your organization. You told everyone how great Teams is. You want them to use it. In the admin portal, there are several reports that you can look at to track the usage of the client. So you need to go to the usage reports. Then you need to select there the Microsoft Teams device usage, and then you can see how many people are actually using the Windows client. You have different timeframes that you can look at. You can also export the data, and actually you can also use based on usernames on how many users are using the client. Which users, and then whatever your skills are, with the data, you might be able to create a report for yourself by connecting the information of the usernames to where the users are located, and then understand which locations are very good in using the desktop client versus other locations where you might want to send people a reminder, or maybe the client hasn't been rolled out at all. Let's review what we have covered today. Now, after completing the session, you understand how the desktop client increases the reachability and productivity of your end users, how it can be installed individually by users or rolled out by IT, and how the update process works. It's fully automated. Here, our resource slide. Again, if you're looking for additional modules, you can go to aka.ms/Teams Academy. Again, if you want to give us any feedback for this session, go to aka.ms/Teams Community, use the IT Pro training label when creating a new community post. If you want to give feedback on how the features behave, go to aka.ms/Teams Feedback to vote on existing ideas or create a new idea. And follow our blog, aka.ms/Teams blog, to always stay up to date with Teams and Office 365 functionality. Finally, this slide lists when this recording was done, so that should give you an idea how much up to date all this information is. This concludes today's session. Thanks a lot for attending.